everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. So joining me is actually an industry and success factors expert, SAP and success factors expert, Mitch Garner from HR Focal Point, where Mitch runs their managed support area focused on payroll. I actually remember meeting Mitch for the first time many years ago, Mitch. It was at the SAP Insider Conference. I think we were both presenting, and you were talking about one of our early ECP projects and how you helped get the customer live. I found your presentation super helpful. It was a great story. So I still distinctly remember that. It was also really nice to see you and catch up with you at the recent Success Connect a few months ago. And I know we were standing there having a great conversation about payroll with a few people, and just there were people around us kind of listening in. I think it was Beth mentioned we should do a podcast together, and now here we are. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for sharing your expertise, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks, Imran, and happy to be here to talk about Employee Central Payroll today. It was definitely good to see you again in person at Success Connect, and looking forward to that again in the future as well. I remember talking about PCC back when we first met, and it's been really interesting to watch how far the Payroll Control Center and ECP overall, for that matter, has come along over the years since. So looking forward to talking today.
Yeah, I know. And you, I guess, like I mentioned, saw it in kind of its early days when it was new and there was, a lot of work to do. So I know you have a kind of interesting point of view. So yeah, let's jump into it and let's talk about the recent second half release for payroll. What were some of your thoughts on this release?
Sure. Yeah, I would really think this is a great release for the end of the year this time. I'd really like to talk in detail on some of the enhancements for Payroll Control Center in a moment. But before that, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that I think are really, they may be smaller enhancements, but they could easily get overlooked because of that and still provide a lot of value. The first one is the enhancement of rule functions to access the pay calendar dates. Right. I thought that one is a really good enhancement on the Employee Central side to sort of bring us back to the capabilities that we had back in the on-premise product, as far as validating that master data is entered in a way that doesn't impact or impacts payroll in a way that you expect. I don't know if you have any comments on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that's a really good usability thing, right? And making sure that people are kind of following the key dates and things like that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that one. And, it's one that we heard from our customers and definitely partners too, right? So I think it's very helpful to have.
The second one I wanted to bring up is a little bit more behind the scenes, but from a support standpoint, from anybody that's listening and supporting employee master data replication, there's some really nice enhancements to the replication status transaction in ECP that allow you to really compare the previous replication detailed data to the current replication attempt and really figure out what in the data might have been different that's affecting employee master data replication and any issues you're having there. So it's nice to see that transaction continue to be enhanced to allow you to support the replication.
Yeah, and I know there's some backstory behind that one too. And if I remember correctly, that was actually one of the things where our internal engineering and operations used, and it was more of a conversation of like, hey, I think this could also be useful for our customers and our partners to have as well, right? And so kind of that decision was made, and then there have actually it's kind of grown from there, and there's been some enhancements to it too. So I guess I'm glad to hear that feedback that you find that one useful. I guess in your role when you're kind of helping and managing and even running customers' payroll, it makes sense that you might want that glimpse, and so I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, obviously, Data Replication Monitor Employee Central is still the go-to for monitoring replication, but when it comes to issues, it's good to see these enhancements behind the scenes. So moving on to Payroll Control Center, I took a look at your release blog. Thanks for continuing to put those out. And one of the big items there was the clickable KPIs in PCC. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the thoughts behind those enhancements.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm actually getting this question a lot, and I'm having a lot of conversations around it. Because in that blog, I kind of gave, a point of view. I didn't just say, "Hey, this is the clickable KPI, and this is what." I kind of gave some history there. So the funny thing about that is, we've heard this request for actually a long time, right? It's been one of those things that most customers they see this thing and like, "Hey, I want to click on it," right? And for us, we always kind of knew that this was something that customers wanted, but it was also important for us to kind of do it in the right way and implement it in the right way, right? And so I think it made sense to kind of do now, but we were also kind of careful and cognizant of it too. So we rolled it out, as part of the managed configuration application, where you can set it up using that new application that we released, gosh, maybe a year and a half or so ago, and we've been updating that application since then. And the thing with the clickable KPIs is that when we were originally getting into workshops with customers, and we have these KPIs, and then they'd say, "Hey, I want to be able to click into it." And so then we'd actually get into a conversation, and we're like, "All right, that's fine. I understand you want to click into it, but what are you going to do, right? If you have a tile here that shows, gross payments of $1 million, what do you want to do?" They're like, "Well, I want to click it and then get a list." I'm like, "Well, you want a big list of, if you have 10,000 people, you want a list of 10,000 people with their payroll amounts?" And so that didn't kind of like feel like the right application of it, because the whole intent with PCC was to move those type of things to systematic alerts where the system identifies the deviations, and we always kind of were under the point of view that it made more sense to build very intelligent alerts, because the alerts are actionable, right? Because you can go in and you can see the details about them. You can actually go make a change. You can enter notes and do all of those things. So that's like the foundation and structure for how you would solve discrepancies in payroll. And rather than going and looking at a big report, and I'm sure the next request would be like, "Well, I want to output this to Excel," right? And then they want to sort and filter
Exactly.
it, do that type of thing. So, it was one of those things where, we were trying to figure out the right application for it. And actually, I've been meaning to either update my blog, or actually perhaps I'll write a new one. But one of the things we also did with that is we've updated our best practice content to include samples of clickable KPI configuration, right? And I think it's important. I think it helps partners and customers adopt it faster and kind of see some of the examples set up on the managed configuration side. But the other thing I think is it gives some examples of things you can do with it, right? And as part of that, you can actually create for a single KPI, right? If I have total gross or something like that, I can click into it, and it's not just a single report. You could actually have tabs and have multiple data points. And so we actually started having some workshops with customers over the last half year, and we got some ideas of things we can do, right? And I think it makes sense to kind of pull out trend data there. And I was actually having a conversation with someone else, and on LinkedIn just earlier this week, and we kind of got into that discussion as well, where the trend data makes sense, where you can look at people, perhaps by cost center, and you can see it over the last 6 periods, right? And that type of thing to me made a lot of sense. And ultimately, where we're at is we were able to meet customers kind of like in the middle of, hey, they wanted this functionality, and now they're able to kind of take it or use it. So it was something we thought about quite long and hard, and it made sense to deliver. And I think the timing was also right to have it, especially as part of the functionality we delivered with managed configuration over the last year. But I would actually love to get your thoughts on it, right? Because everyone's got a different point of view, and I think you'd have an interesting one.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that the comments on the ability to view the trends. As an implementer, I mean, that's something that pretty much all of our customers are looking for during the payroll processing process, whether they're using Payroll Control Center or not. And over the years, I've been doing this long enough that Payroll Control Center didn't exist when I started.
Right.
And we've developed reports over the years that accomplish these same types of things that you can now do with the standard product. And it's really good to see, not only do we have the capability to do it, we've got that best practices content that you mentioned, which I think is another good method to see the intent behind the differentiation between alerts and KPIs, and what SAP's intent was for each of those functionalities. The best practices content really gives you a window into how to leverage each of those areas, or at least how SAP intended for a customer to leverage each of those areas. And it's great to hear that's been enhanced already for these new drill down KPIs. I'm really interested, if you do another blog, really interested to see how that looks, and especially the tabbed user interface, where you can look at different KPIs and trends over multiple payroll periods. I was talking with someone the other day where, typically we're looking, previous period to current period, and we're always focused on what was the last period and what do we have this period, and does it look reasonable as far as proceeding with the current process, and being able to see more than just one period, it sounds like is going to be capable, or the product's capable of now, which is going to be great.
Yep. And like when you look at it, I think it makes sense where you might want to look at the trend data at a kind of a more aggregate level, right? Because if you look at a KPI overall and you're looking across the entire company, it's 1 million last period, 1 million this period. Sometimes you might want to get into that because the numbers might look like yeah, okay, it's fine. Like last period and this period are roughly the same. But then if you click into that and you're able to get at a location level or a cost center level and see those type of things, right? And I think it's probably helpful.
Absolutely. That's something that we see all the time. Even in some of the reporting I've developed over the years, you can see an overall number, but you really don't have a drill down beyond that number in some cases, or if you do, it might go straight down to the employee level. And like you were saying, there's only a limited amount of usability in looking at the details of every employee when you're trying to get a payroll out.
I'll tell you what, though, I've come across some payroll admins. They get this long Excel of 2,000 people, and I don't know what they do. They've developed some kind of magic eye, but they will scroll through a big Excel document, and they'll oh, this one doesn't look right to me, and then they'll go and run their simulations and do that type of stuff. But not everyone has that magic eye, so it's difficult. It's kind of funny and intriguing at the same time to watch someone work like that. But I think hopefully this gives it so some of the things that people are used to from reporting or trend data, they'll now be able to kind of implement here, and to me it makes it a lot easier, right? Rather than having to go somewhere, enter whether it's a variant or details or specific things like that. It's right where you're already looking at the high level data. You can kind of click in and then hopefully get the data that you're looking for right here, and that I think may help people move away from the typical type of reporting that they've done.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what's great is it's flexible, right? If you're the type of payroll manager, to your point, that needs to look at those individual people, that's available. Yeah. If you prefer to look at higher level aggregations on different business objects, that's available as well. So I think the flexibility is great.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. It's going to vary, right? When I look at customers that are, maybe, or talk to customers that are smaller size, right? Because now with ECP, we actually do get smaller sized customers, and I think for them, it's probably okay, or that maybe they're fine with kind of looking at that. But you can't do that if you're a 100,000 person company, right? And you have these large payroll areas. That's just not realistic or pragmatic, right? And so I think for us, different customers will go about implementing it different way. But I am excited to see how some of those use cases surface. Also, our partners, right? I think they do some cool and innovative things. So I'm looking forward to, once this is out there for a little while, to hear what the ecosystem does. So yeah,
agree.
All right, well, let's change gears a little bit to a different topic, timely one. Right now, it's year end for payroll. I know this is something that you have a lot of experience with. I think I've heard you speak about it over the years, and I've learned from you too. So hopefully we can get that out to others. You've also done it so many times, right, for customers because you as an outsourcer, you're actually doing this. So it's almost like you got the experience of both a partner as well as a customer because you're actually doing this. So obviously, with legal changes, things like that, the system and what customers need to do is always kind of evolving. What, from your standpoint, are some of the key things to be successful around year end? Have you seen?
Sure. Yeah. So for year end, one of the most important things I think that as a customer you need to have in place is a plan for your year end, starting all the way to the starting all the way with the updates that you need to put into your Employee Central payroll system or your on-premise SAP payroll system for that matter,
Yeah.
through all of your validation of configuration, validation of your payrolls for the new year, and tax reporting for the current year as well. So having a plan in place is something that I think is super important. I remember the very first year end I did on SAP payroll. That I needed a plan and I didn't have one. So getting that in place, working with a partner or SAP, someone that's done it before to leverage based upon their experience can really jumpstart your year-end planning and help with all of that the tasks that you need to get done during a super hectic time of the year when you don't really need to be trying to reinvent the wheel. So one of the first important things that I think ought to be in that plan that I mentioned is HR support package planning in your on-premise or Employee Central payroll system. And that could be full HR support packages or country legal change packs, depending upon whether you're a single country implementation or a multi-country implementation. And once you have the plan in place for what support package strategy you have, having a test plan to make sure that you are comfortable with the functionality that you're going to be putting in production before you run that first live payroll on the new processes. You and the HR support packages don't just touch payroll; they touch a lot of aspects of your system, including replication, time data transfer, those types of things. So making sure that those are validated, I think, are very important. And I don't know if you have any comments on HRSPs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point. And the funny thing is, like you mentioned, a plan, right? And I've talked to a lot of customers over the years, and you look at some, and they literally have it down to a science. They've been doing this for X number of years. They know exactly what to do. They know exactly what to step, and they're unfazed by anything that comes their way for the most part. Whereas others who I guess haven't quite gotten there, maybe they're newly live and they don't really have the expertise of what that plan looks like, then I think it's more important to really, do exactly what you said, right? And the HR support pack strategy, right? I think it's important to make sure to monitor the dates and understand when things are going to be available and those type of things. I think it's good to have that strategy. So, yeah,
absolutely. As far as on the configuration side for the new year payroll, it's in the midst of all the things that you need to do for year end of the current year, it's always important to remember you've got that first payroll of the new year coming up, and you don't want any surprises when you try to run that for the first time in production. So another important part of that plan is always making sure that you've reviewed the dates associated with the new year payrolls, especially make sure your pay dates are right. It gets difficult to, or can get difficult in some cases, to modify a pay date in the new year after you're halfway through the year and didn't realize that there was a holiday on a pay date that you didn't catch earlier on. So reviewing all of those dates and configuration up front can save you some headaches in the future. And then as far as tax reporting for the current year, The it's good to start reviewing those processes as soon as you can to make sure, and this sort of goes along with the HR support package strategy. There's generally a minimum release that you have to be on from the SAP side of things for U.S. tax reporter in general, and then for other countries as well. There's generally a minimum release. So making sure you're there, and then continuing to monitor the available resources from SAP to ensure that you're keeping the latest notes after that initial release applied to your system as well. Anything else from the SAP standpoint you'd like to talk about your end?
I guess maybe I'll reemphasize some of the things, but I can't repeat it enough. A big thing is to stay on top of the things we're delivering and look at those dates, right? And from our standpoint, we have various ways to communicate that to customers, right? And so depending on your region, because payroll is very country specific. So we have various webinars that have that key information for customers, right? So I'm here in the US and Canada. I know I have listeners kind of all over the place, but we do a joint one with our user group, America's SAP user group, and that has critical information around some of the tax reporter you mentioned, the HR support pack, some of the things that are going to be in there, the taxes. So that webinar happened, and the recording is still available afterwards. So even if you can't attend it live, I think it's important to go back and look at that, and that gives you a good glimpse into the things you're delivering. I'll reemphasize what you said. Know the key dates, right? Know the dates that the support packs come out in, and then incorporate that into your plan of, okay, it comes out on this date, but you know what, we're running payroll on Friday, so let's begin this the following week or something like that, right? And having that plan really helps you kind of get that alignment and know what to look at. I would also recommend following, we have an application announcement of legal changes. So this is actually prior to legal changes coming out, when we're kind of aware that the government has announced something and we're taking a look at it. A lot of times we'll deliver an announcement, and you can kind of follow that, and then we'll continue to update that. You'd also want to follow the SAP notes and blogs as well. So, we have in the US, a blog that is written and then continually is updated. We also have notes, and, if you know how to use and filter the notes, I think that's important too, because then you can filter it just for US or Canada or wherever you are. You can kind of follow just that particular area. So I think that's important. So how do you usually stay on top of the latest updates and make sure you have what you need to be successful?
Sure. So I'll go back to a couple of your points as well. I think one underutilized area of SAP, at least from what I've heard from customers, is that announcement of legal changes.
Yep.
That in comparison, I guess, to SAP notes and KBAs is truly a separate resource, like you mentioned, to see the up and coming changes that SAP has identified and plans to address within the application, or address a solution within the application. Mm-hmm. I see varying levels of adoption or of that application in our customers, and I think that's it's a very good resource to know what's up and coming, and I guess to not have to just go to SAP and ask is, have you seen this legal change that's coming from a governmental entity? So that's a really good one that we try to stay on top of, or I try to stay on top of, in addition to the KBAs that typically are addressing a solution for whatever those legal changes are. You mentioned the support pack schedule. That's something I've got my eye on all the time. For the groupings of all, the large groupings of updates that are rolled into support packages, it's a good thing to just keep an eye on at year end. But even during the year, I try to recommend not just waiting until the year end or the end of the year to apply a support package. If your organization can adopt a support package application schedule that includes an application of it, or application of a support package more often than once a year, I think there's value in that. It sort of separates the amount of change that you have to take on at a given time. And so that always, I think, is really helpful.
Yep, that makes sense. Yep.
And I guess on the ECP side, I mean, it's great in Employee Central Payroll how SAP takes a lot of the technical burden off the customer and as far as applying HR support packages in the technical side of that and applying notes if you're a customer that wants to have SAP do that on your behalf. But it's still important, to keep track as a customer of all of these things, because currently Employee Central Payroll, as far as keeping your system up to date with legal changes, is still a customer responsibility. So as we mentioned, I think that's something always important to stay on top of. You mentioned blogs. I think Griselia's blog on U.S. Tax Reporter year end over the past few years is a really great resource to stay on top of the U.S. Year end. And I don't know if you have comments on that for Canada as well, but that's a really great blog.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the important things to follow, because, it's also one of those things that's continually updated, but then you also get questions and the answering of questions, right? And so a lot of times what we find is usually if someone's asking a question, it might not just be that one customer that has that. And so a lot of people, when they come there, they can kind of see, oh, my question's already been answered, or, there's a level of engagement that's there that I think is nice to kind of see. So I think that's helpful. So, all right. Well, we've covered quite a bit today. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise, and I enjoyed the conversation as always, Mitch. Hopefully I can see you again next year, maybe Sapphire, Success Connect, or maybe even before then. So appreciate it, and thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.